about international registration. So I'm the Associate Director of Communications at the General Dental Council, and I just want to try and clarify exactly what the situation is with overseas registration and international routes to registration as well. And I'll start just briefly. Whenever I talk on behalf of the GDC, I always just remind everyone what our purpose is and what our remit is, because it can be a bit confusing. There's a lot of other regulatory things in the dental environment, aren't there? So our primary role is to protect, promote and maintain the health, safety and well-being of the public. And we do this through a number of ways. We set the standards for undergraduate dental education. We quality assure against those standards. We inspect institutions so that they are conforming to those standards. And one of the most important jobs, in fact, the most important job that we have is registration, so that the people with the right skills, experience, character and health are allowed on the register, and people who do not are not allowed onto the register. It's the most important thing that we do. We also set the standards for professionalism and standards throughout a dental professional's career, and the standards for your continuing professional development. And we do also operate fitness to practice, so where there are concerns about dental professional, we can intervene and operate a fitness to practice regime to investigate that as well. So that's what we do, and I always think it's worth just starting with a little bit of that. So what I really want to talk about are the overseas qualified routes to registration that exist at the minute. And I'll just speak really briefly about the bottom three. But the first thing to say, and Pip touched on it right at the beginning, overseas qualified dental professionals make up a growing proportion of the workforce in the UK, and a very welcome and valued and important part of the dental team as well. It's a very important part of the workforce. In fact, last year, 49% of dentists who joined the register qualified outside of the UK, so it's a really large proportion. If I speak briefly about the three on the bottom there, so temporary registration is a process that the GDC manages, and that's where people can be temporarily registered into supervised roles, very specific roles, often in a research environment. It's very small numbers. The Licence in Dental Surgery, so the LDS, that's managed by the Faculty of Dental Surgery at the Royal College of Surgeons of England, and that's an exam-based route into registration, a 3-stage exam, but that's managed by the college, not by us. And there's also a BDS international route where overseas qualified dentists can join a BDS course in year 3, I think it is, and for 18 months, and then if they pass the course, they will be qualified in the UK and can join the register. And the University College of Lancashire runs that course at the minute. They're over here today, actually. So they're the three sort of very valuable, but kind of probably the smaller size of routes. So if I talk about the three routes that the GDC manages, apart from temporary, EEA, or European Automatic Recognition of Dental Qualifications from Europe, let's call it, that will continue to be automatically recognised. The government has said until June 2028. So for about the next 4.5 years, that is still in place, which is really good, because 38% of dentists who joined the register last year came through that route from Europe. So it's a really large proportion. The ORE, I think everyone here probably knows what the ORE means. Yes, lots of nods. Everybody here knows what that means. So this is a 2-part exam. It was suspended during the pandemic, and that built up a large amount of pressure and volume to sit the exams as well. We had some legislation change. The government proposed some changes in 2022. They came into force in March 2023, and that gave us some more flexibility. And what we did was we used that to renegotiate some contracts around the exams that were put on to get more places. So last year, the number of Part 1 places went up by 3. It's now 1,200 places a year. And the number of Part 2 places went up by 1/3. It's 576 Part 2 places a year. The pass rate, however, has stayed around 50%. And you can attempt both parts 4 times. So when people fail, they try and get on the exam again, and that takes up another space. So there's still a lot of pressure on that route. The good thing about the change in legislation also means that we can work with more suppliers. So we've just started a tender exercise to get suppliers from 2025 who can provide a larger scale and more flexible range of exams. So we're hoping to have more capacity from that as well. We're also introducing new fees, which means we can recover the costs, which means we can have more exams running. But we're also designing a new framework for the ORE. And our aim really is to create a system of international registration that's fair to applicants, such as probably many of the people here. It's efficient to deliver, and it's rigorous in protecting patient safety. So that's a piece of work that we're on with now. If I talk briefly about the overseas assessed applications for DCPs, there was a route where overseas qualified dentists could apply to be a hygienist or therapist in the UK. Many people arrived on the register through that route. That route closed in March 2023. In 2019, we used to receive about 300 applications through that route a year. In the last few months before it closed in March 2023, we received 5,700 applications through that route. In the last week before it closed, we received 2,000 applications. So huge volumes compared to what we used to receive. So what we did last year is we doubled the size of the registration casework team. We recruited more assessors. We managed to assess 2,000 of the applications that were in the queue, and we expect to have got through the backlog by the end of this year. So some people here might have their applications in that queue, and they are being worked through, mindful of the fact that 5,700 is a lot bigger than 300. So scaling up to do that took some time, but that's what we've been able to do. If I look briefly at what that means in terms of real numbers, last year, these are figures we haven't published yet, but I'll share them here amongst friends. So the dentists who joined the register in 2023, 49% were qualified outside the UK. So that European route, EEA qualified 38% of dentists who joined the register. The ORE was 10% in 2023. The numbers on the right-hand side are the real numbers of people who joined the register. So 1,087 from UK qualified, etc. as well. If I look at dental care professionals on the register at the end of 2023, I'm just looking at the whole of the register for this. 95% of dental care professionals qualify in the UK. We have seen, obviously, a surge in the numbers who have come through that dentist registering as hygienists and therapists. So there was a big surge of numbers last year. There'll be a surge this year when we work through the backlog. The numbers might then go back to normal because that route is now closed. So that's what we predict might well happen. So, provisional registration. I'm on the stand today for the GDC, and lots of people come to talk to me about provisional registration. So the government has put forward proposals where overseas qualified dentists could be provisionally registered in the UK. Their proposals, they have to consult, and that finishes midnight tomorrow, actually. We've provided some feedback on the proposals. Lots of other organisations will have done the same as well. And the proposals will give us, the GDC, some new powers. We'll be able to set up a new status of provisional registrant. We'll be able to provide guidance about the level, determine the level of supervision that provisional registrants should be under, and also set time limits on how long that should last for. So the government has just finished their consultation. The next steps on that I'll talk about in a second. These proposals, they are the most substantial change to dental regulation in many, many years. It's very significant, the changes that have been proposed. In our response, we're focused on two principles. The first one, registration standards should not be compromised. Patients must be safe. The second principle is that the registration processes should be no more onerous or difficult than is necessary. And at its very simplest, you could think of provisional registration as there are three really important stages. How people enter provisional registration, so how you become a provisional registrant, how you are assessed when you are a provisional registrant, and how you exit and join the register. So at its simplest, those are the simplest parts of the picture. It's a very complicated piece to get that right though, and the legislation is an important first step, but it is just the first step. So the government will have to take on board all of the comments to their consultation. They'll then have to draft the law, the legislation, and have that approved in the Houses of Parliament. So there's a process along them doing that. There will then need to be a lot more detailed work to design a safe and effective framework for this to operate. We will have to design that, some of the rules of the system, and work in collaboration with stakeholders right across the dental sector. There are a lot of questions to work through. Some of them are questions for us, the GDC. Who can be a supervisor? Will there be supervisory bodies? Will there be a time limit? How will the quality be assured? And then there's also the issue of the cost and capacity to deliver. It is the most substantial change to dental regulation in many, many years. There will also be lots of operational issues that are not in the remit of the General Dental Council to deliver. So we want to work with stakeholders across the dental sector to do that. And some of these issues will be indemnity arrangements, both for provisional registrants but also the supervisors as well. There's also things to consider about training and recruitment of supervisors, funding of placements for provisional registrants, the cost of supervision, and how employers then select provisional registrants to join their workforces. So, to summarise what this means, I've tried to kind of summarise, this is the sort of conversation I've been having for the last 2 days on the stand. For the European EEA qualification route for overseas qualified dentists, it's in place until June 2028, is what the government have said. For the ORE, the more places we put in place last year, we want to continue, and we're trying to tender for new contracts to increase that and make it even more flexible. But we're also looking to design a new comprehensive framework for overseas registration exams, which is fair to the applicants, efficient to deliver, and protects patients. So we're also building a new framework, which will affect DCP applications as well. For provisional registration, it's an entirely new system that has to be developed and built. These things take time. It's a very large-scale piece of work. I can't give you timescales to put on it, but it will not be a quick solution. And it will also not be down just to the regulator. It's the organisations who will provide placements and supervisors that also have to be ready and able to do that as well. So the very last thing I'll say, the most important thing, who I haven't talked about here, are patients and the public. So this is our primary role as the regulator, and we think that's a goal that we share with every member of the dental team and every organisation that hires dentists as well. And we think that if we work together towards this goal and towards delivering provisional registration, that's the way that we're going to achieve that. Thank you very much.